Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. You know, we've been talking about Bernie Sanders' proposal for a wealth tax. 5% on billionaires of their wealth for, would it be gross or net for, well, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
Him, it's probably gross.
But for their well, I guess, is gross wealth net wealth? It's not like income. The wealth would be wealth, right? Well, he wants a wealth tax on billionaires. However, it would figure out in the legislation.
If we're talking about net worth, yeah, you're building valuation on all properties and everything considered. So,
right,
yeah.
But I mean, for example, would net worth, would your property taxes on the property be a deduction? I guess you could do that technically in any type of legislation. I don't think Bernie Sanders would be interested in doing that, though. But what makes it unconstitutional? Because we had said it earlier, and I realized, we need to explain it. And this is where you get into really interesting possible ways to look at the Constitution and the law.
Okay, so AI, by the way, defines it as net worth equals assets minus liabilities, which is basically, you pointed out one example on taxes or property taxes or something like that. So your property, your assets,
all right.
all of your assets,
all right,
minus your liability.
All right, so if I have property, and is that why Trump wanted the 15% wealth tax? Because he has assets but many liabilities?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Back in 2000.
Yeah. Right.
But all right, that would make sense. So if you own a piece of property, if you've got stock, there's no, there's no liability in there. If you own property, you may have leveraged 95% of it.
But the question would be, at what point? Like, is it the valuation of your combined stock on what day? Because a couple of days ago, if you're a billionaire, let's say you're one of these mega billionaires, you could have lost, and we see the stories. So-and-so lost $3 billion in wealth today, or $6 billion in wealth today because of a big stock market drop. So where do you draw that line? Where is that valuation on stock? Because that wealth moves every day. In fact, it's moving all the time. And, if you talk about the close of business or the close of the market, that's one thing. But it could jump, the Dow could jump 1,000 points during the day, during trading hours, and then come back down and settle at only 100 above what it did, close at 100 above.
I just thought of something. Why don't they view our property taxes the same way? Which is your assets, but your liabilities subtracted from your assets, and that would be your property tax. They didn't care.
That's a great question.
None of our counties care that we don't own the full value of our homes. By the way, but if they did that, we'd never pay off our homes.
Right.
My house would be perfect. There would be so many improvements in it. I'd be taking out equity loans all the time.
Yeah.
Or second mortgages, third mortgages, because I want as much liability as I possibly could get.
I think it's a great question. I wonder if that's ever been challenged in court. Say, well, look, there are liabilities here against the asset.
Well, when it comes to the wealth tax, the reason that it's that we believe it's unconstitutional is when you look at the income tax, everybody has to pay an income tax based on the level that you're at. Everybody has to file. Even if you don't pay, you have to file. And so everybody down the line from billionaires, millionaires, hundreds of thousandaires, tens of thousands of heirs.
Yeah.
$1. You all have to file. You're all in it. And, we had talked about this during the whole gay marriage thing, because this is when they really changed the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment went from equal protection to equal treatment. And the 14th Amendment never had any intention of looking at gay marriage. That was about the Civil War, as we know.
Right.
The interpretation, we believe, was a flawed interpretation of the Supreme Court. Now, can a state approve gay marriage? Of course they can. Yeah, absolutely. Should it have been a federal issue? No. And they made it a right, and nowhere in the Constitution does it say marriage is government sanctioning your marriage. Marriage is a right, who you wish to hang around with.
Yeah, and have a bond with.
Absolutely.
Right.
That is a right. The state recognizing your marriage is not a right. It's a licensing process.
Right.
And so we always disagreed with that. But when they went to the fact of that it is, that everybody needs to be treated the same, we said, fine. Everybody should pay the exact same amount in income tax, not a different percentage. But if you're using, remember, the 14th Amendment is it's like, well, then, the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, how do they justify different rates for income tax? Because everybody in the same situation pays the exact same thing.
Yeah.
If I have the same deductions as you.
Right. If you're in this, everybody in that category, based on income and deductions.
My adjusted income, if it's the same as yours, I have to pay the exact same amount of money. And so as long that's how the Supreme Court looked at it when it was, basically equal protection under the law. When it's equal treatment now, well, wait a minute. You changed it. You said now it's not about equal protection, unless you're going to say it's about equal protection and treatment, and therefore we can do whatever we want, whatever time we want. Right. But the fact is the wealth tax simply goes after billionaires. Capital gains tax goes after everybody.
Right. Right.
Sales tax goes after everybody. And so that would be the situation there with the wealth tax.
Well, and it might
the federal government do that because
get to the point, and this is something you've been saying since the whole gay marriage ruling. All right, well, let's see if there's a challenge based on the income tax. Well, certainly there would be a challenge if the wealth tax were to be implemented, which is not going to be implemented. But and one of the reasons it wouldn't be lasting is because we believe it would be found unconstitutional. But bring up the 14th Amendment as part of the basis for it of, wait a minute, on taxes, you can talk about people being taxed, everybody being taxed based on income, right? And those categories, whatever income category they fall in. On the wealth tax, it only applies, in fact, in this case, to individuals who have a certain wealth, who have a certain amount of property, not what they're earning during that year, but what they own.
Or not what they're buying, which would be a sales tax.
And not what they're buying, yes.
Right.
And so it isolates, it would be I guess the argument from the other side would be, well, but that puts them in a category, and they're all in that category going to be treated equally. The same. It would apply to everybody in that category, including Taylor Swift and Rihanna, apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Well, but you're looking at such a small minority.
Mm-hmm.
You still have half the people in the United States paying income tax.
Right. Yeah. You mean a small minority when it comes to the number of people who are billionaires?
The billionaires, right.
I think they said the range is anywhere between like 900 and 1,100 billionaires total, I think.
And then, as we mentioned a little bit last hour, then when you look at and you say, okay, fine. I can move. Not that I move. I will park. I can sit there and buy land in Europe. I'll buy real estate in Europe. I'll buy real. Can you buy real estate in China?
Well, I'm not sure I would. You can try.
That's right. One of the problems would be, well, wait a minute. That would be the problem. They've gone so socialist. It's like, well, we don't want to buy land over there. We could lose our property completely. They Gary, may have the billionaires.
And Gary, I'll tell you, listen, if you, in your retirement, want to invest in a bridge in China, I could probably sell you one. No, but you bring up a good point, because here's this. All right. Okay. And I mentioned...
Okay, Joe Pesci, go ahead.
Okay. So I mentioned Seinfeld last hour because it was... I'm intrigued. I love the idea that a stand-up comedian, based on his comedy,
about nothing,
can become a billionaire. And he's a true stand-up comic all the way to the end. Even his TV show, he was a stand-up comic. But he lives in New York, right? You buy a property. He buys a lot of Porsches. He's got a few of them. But think about that. Or Jay Leno. Jay Leno's Garage, which is a really cool follow, by the way, on YouTube. I don't know if it's still on CNBC, but it's on YouTube. It's some really cool episodes. But you've invested in these properties, land, real estate, or collectibles, cars, something like that. The valuation of them, like if Gary... if you decided, you're a Mustang guy or a Corvette guy, whatever, and you bought one, I mean, it was your live stream to have one parked in your garage. You're only going to drive it every blue moon, but you wanted to find this very unique, almost one of a kind, very rare. Well, the value for that is going to fluctuate, right? Same thing with a piece of art. Right. You can see these things that go to auction, and it's like, oh my gosh, boom, millions of dollars at auction. A penthouse apartment or home in New York City. A lot of people from China, the reverse of what we were talking about, park their money in the U.S., California, and New York, because they realize it's going to be stable. They can park their money in that real estate and leave it there, and then when they need to convert that to cash, they can do so fairly quickly. But if you're a taxpayer in the U.S., you're a billionaire, and you buy your personal property, that means appraisals every year would be required, every single year, because the reason that they can't, the Forbes list of billionaires and all this stuff, they can't nail it down. And Jerry Seinfeld's a prime example, because his people came back and said, it's not accurate. They didn't say one way or the other, whether it's too low or too high. But the reason they can't is because you don't know what those assets that they own, what the valuation is on any of them. It fluctuates greatly. And by the way, that means it also could tank. Artwork is a great example. There are collectibles in artwork. There are things in the art world. You just have to watch what is it, the Antiques Roadshow on PBS to know. You'll see something was valued at something in 2005 as something, and then all of a sudden, boom, it plummeted, because investors in things like that are fickle, and so there might not be much of a demand on it. The point being is that you have to go through every single little thing they own, every item that they own. What about that Rolex watch you've got there? All of that has to, again, where does it? Because if we're getting to the 5% standard, the Rolex watch is part of your wealth. And you're going to have to get into, okay, you got to have appraisal on everything you own. This is so insane, this idea. But when you follow it through of how it would be enforced, it becomes impossible.
Well, and the other thing is, too, you're actually, since you're going after the billionaires, isn't it also a de facto corporate wealth tax, in essence? If you're a billionaire and you own buildings.
Yeah.
Is that, if you're a billionaire and that's part of it,
right,
are they going to be taxed? Because the next thing would be, and I can see the Democrats wanting a corporate wealth tax,
right,
which, my God, would just destroy real estate. You think about downtown areas right now, all across the United States that are hurting. The vacancy rate and everything else. Last thing they want is the government to come in and lower the value of that. We all know that when the far left, which is the left, comes up with any type of tax idea, the thing would expand because, okay, this has been such a success for 10 years, let's redo it again.
Right.
Then the next thing is, okay, a corporate wealth tax.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the idea is, because here's what they're going to find out. Yeah, I think the collective is, I don't know, anywhere between 6 and 10 trillion with the billionaires. I don't know what the total wealth is. I don't think anybody knows accurately. But if you took 100% of their wealth, right? Well, that's not going to be enough for a Bernie, right? And Elizabeth Warren. And the idea would be to go after corporations eventually, and then eventually come after you. This is all going to affect you, us. We're going to pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
We would pay for this.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operator Mike Nichols is leased to Wayne Transports, pulling in their dry bulk division today after decades in business for himself. Speaking to Overdrive's Todd Dills recently, Nichols offered a word of advice to any company driver planning to make the switch to running as an owner-operator, unless you've got access to family money or otherwise independently wealthy, he noted.
As a company driver, you need to be thinking about startup capital and down payment, and I would just say that you need to treat that like you would firewood. Save what you think you might need and then triple it, if not quadruple it. And you'll be thankful that you did.
You'll be glad you did. That is, not just given favorable loan terms with a good down payment. Inevitably with trucking, you'll get hit with a breakdown and huge repair bill, or another of those unforeseen events. You'll need that reserve cash to cover it and avoid taking on debt or going out of business. Hear more from Overdrive's 2024 Trucker of the Year contenders at overdriveonline.com/PIB.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, my favorite headline of the day.
Yeah?
James Talarico, who won in the primary against Jasmine Crockett.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know, my congressperson. Here's the headline. James Talarico wins the coveted endorsement of Beto O'Rourke.
Coveted?
Yes.
Coveted? Coveted?
Just like my Silver Sour Award.
Coveted. They use the word coveted. Coveted.
The Gateway Pundit headline. The Democrat who just won the Senate primary in Texas and has a positively bizarre view of God and Christianity just won the prized endorsement of Beto O'Rourke, who praised him during appearance on MS Now with Jen Psaki.
Okay. Wow. There's a crowd I want to hang out with. That's where I want my endorsements coming from. Beto. By the way, a lot of people are probably asking, Beto who?
Who? The Irish guy.
Yeah, the Irish guy from El Paso.
Yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Relief Factor Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when you choose. All right, so just reading here from Jonathan Turley. I promised this earlier in the show. I want to make sure I get to it. Jonathan Turley wrote yesterday, in the end, the Kane resolution succeeded in having the opposite effect of voting against limiting the prosecution of the war. The Senate has now been consulted and voted against limits. Notably, the resolution was more feckless given the exception for imminent threats. With the full combat operations on both sides, all threats are now imminent and all attacks responsive. That's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, the resolution, unless we can't attack Iran and unless there's an imminent threat. Well, there is.
There is. We can go back 47 years if you need.
Well, no, he's talking about now. He's talking about right now.
I know what imminent means,
right,
but it's the point is in this case, what constitutes imminent threat is the existence and pattern of behavior, of the regime,
as we discussed before. But Turley's talking about how this resolution is ridiculous because the imminent threat, everybody agrees is there, and yet the Democrats are saying you need an imminent threat as if this would stop anything that was going on.
Like they were about to fire a nuclear weapon tomorrow or something. Yes.
And then he writes, what is interesting is that even after the Senate was notified, consulted, and voted, Democrats are still calling the war illegal. The Senate just voted against limiting or blocking the use of force. So, I mean, it's just, they just want to throw out illegal just to throw out.
Because Trump's doing something illegal.
Right. Because it sounds good.
Right.
This, I thought, was superb because there was a lot of discussion over the last 24 hours about the Jasmine Crockett, Talarico thing. We know on MS Now, we played the audio cut yesterday, they're now suggesting they were just giddy over the fact that how great it would be to have an AOC Jasmine Crockett ticket for the Democrats for 28.
Please make that happen.
But that's the debate going on inside the Democrat Party. You know, you and I, we pounded the last few months on Mark Kelly in Arizona. First it was the interview he was doing with some, I don't know, podcaster or whatever, where he agreed, yes, we need to get rid of billionaires. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
What an idiot. I'm sorry, that's an idiotic statement to make. And then we saw the State of the Union address last week. Then his complete cluelessness about the legalities of the War Power Act. And what was the other thing that he brought up that was just, we drove a truck through yesterday on yesterday's show. Hang on here one moment to see if I can find it, because it was just absolutely absurd. But the point we're trying to make yesterday is just because you're a fighter pilot, just because you have military experience, just because you're a space shuttle pilot, does not mean that in the arena of ideas in Washington, D.C., that you have any type of critical thinking skills at all.
Right. Look, we talked about, speaking of senators from Arizona, the late John McCain.
Said the same thing,
his war service, he's a hero. When it comes to his military service, John McCain went through unimaginable things.
Yep.
Now, after that, he became a senator. And you're in this, again, debate on what is right in terms of legislation. Well, we're going to have concerns, and there is no, it's based on the issues. Disagreement is disagreement. You can still be wrong and still be, in the case of John McCain, still be a war hero. So it was, and so many people had, of course, the left would take with John McCain. He's a maverick. They haven't called Mark Kelly a maverick, have they? But Mark Kelly is bitter. You can see it now.
And
you can see it.
And he endorses. He was. And the point is, the Democrats now are in this debate right now. Remember, if we run somebody like Mark Kelly, he's an astronaut, a pilot, a military person.
Right.
We can portray him as a moderate.
Right.
He's as radical as any Democrat out there.
All-American hero, hero. And then, but you get down to the issues.
He's as radical as anyone out there.
Yeah.
On the Democrat side.
Right.
And this was written National Review. Talarico in theory and practice. Democrats have, however, or here it is. The Democrat nominee for senator from Texas wants to win conservative and moderate voters, but without giving them any ground on policy. Exactly what we said earlier in the show.
Yeah.
At the Washington Post, I argue that's a well-trodden dead end. Democrats have, however, often come to grief by supposing that a candidate with traits associated with conservatism doesn't need to moderate on the issues. Whenever the party nominates military veterans, strategists suggest that their service will insulate them from charges of progressive extremism. Often it doesn't. John Kerry, a decorated Vietnam veteran and Democrats' losing presidential nominee in 2004, is one example. Amy McGrath, a fighter pilot who took on Republican Senator Mitch McConnell in Kentucky in 2020, is another. Her biography helped her raise more than $90 million from Democrats nationwide, but she lost by nearly 20 points. It was partly for similar demographic reasons that Kamala Harris chose Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate for 2024. She thought he had a special appeal to rural white voters. It did not show in the results. And that's the point that we've been bringing up with the whole Talarico thing, is that it's the Democrats that practice identity politics. And just to make sure, when we say these things, we're talking about how they think, not how we think.
Right.
And, we know that when the whole thing happened with Colbert, just interviewing Talarico and refusing to have on Jasmine Crockett, immediately Democrats started screaming, here we go again. It's the Democrat media and the Democrat establishment wanting what was the term I saw on Twitter? A powdery, not just a white man.
Yeah, a powdery.
I don't know. What's the difference between a white man and a powdery white man? Am I a white man or a powdery white man? Do I have to have my little compact with the little thing and,
I don't know that you have to wear the powder. You just have to look like you have a bunch on your face. Kind of like Joe Biden.
But we know because they practice identity politics, which is they judge people by groups and not individuals. They segment every single group. And they go, okay, we can fool independents who trend conservative by putting somebody in the military. That was the whole basis, for example, of Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly is as radical. You look at it when Trump says they're crazy. Well, they're crazy. They use that. When Trump used that term, as we said, we don't like to use labels all the time, but when the labels absolutely are accurate as to where you stand on the issues, that's where it hits home. When you call Trump Hitler, the average person looks and goes, well, he hasn't killed 6 million Jews, but he could. Yeah, but he hasn't.
That's but that's the thing. Building the fear that the potential that is his goal. That's his intent. That's his mission statement, that he's going to kill 6 million people.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to hear that Talarico is crazy. He believes there's 6 genders.
Exactly.
As he came out the other day, he's crazy. He believes the Bible endorses abortion.
Mm-hmm.
What's next? Those are going to, because they are views that are completely and totally outside of the mainstream. And you and I, part of the proof is when you take Trump's name out of it, the vast majority of things that Trump agrees with, Democrats do. It's when you attach his name to it.
Right.
Voter ID.
Right.
Voter ID.
Well, we go back to the Iran deal. Remember the poll on the Iran deal? Should the president leave that to Congress? Yes. Do you agree that Trump should turn this over to Congress? No. On the Iran deal.
It was the opposite.
Well, Trump was saying if Congress wanted to do an Iran deal, that's one thing. But the president can't do it.
Okay. Right.
And so they were saying, and in the polls, before you mentioned Trump's name, should the president alone do that, or should it be left up to Congress?
Yeah.
And Trump was saying it should be left up to Congress. But once you brought his name into it, no. Anything he touches basically becomes spoiled when you bring his name into it to many people.
But when you look at it, this is obvious what is happening. But then again, there is a great debate. Saw yesterday a story out there. The far left wants AOC for president.
Right.
And that's what they're fighting. Now in Texas is different than Illinois.
Right.
And so they're like, okay, what we need to do is on the national level, we need, like for president, we need radicals, but in places in more red states, we need to pretend that these people, because that's the whole point. You know, that was the whole point with Talarico, is he's a minister's son. He was a seminarian student. He's a Christian. No, he's not.
Right.
He's a BSer is what he is.
Yes.
And we know it. He's as radical as anybody in the Democratic Party, but he wears a nice suit. And his hair is cut to the point where Democrats believe that independents who lean conservatives will vote for the Christian guy in a nice suit, young smile, and nice hair.
Right.
That's how they think, because they're the ones that practice the identity politics of today and have been doing it, and they're trying to make identity politics work in their favor in some cases, not in all cases.
Well, the whole conversation on MS Now about AOC and Jasmine Crockett being the dream ticket, that's based in identity politics.
Yeah.
You know, this is where, and the problem they're having is, again, the rank and file looking at what's working, what isn't. I think the rank and file looks at it and goes, who was it? Was it Uger? Cenk Uger that was saying, look, you know, on some of these things, our side is crazy. But I think what he was trying to say is, look, promote the ideas, leave out the googly eyes. You know, don't post a video. Don't post a video.
I wouldn't do the other thing either.
I didn't do that one either. That may be part of the advice. I'm not sure. Listen, you should talk to your doctor about that. Here's a Freudian slip, maybe. Don't post a video. Don't post a video of your significant other next to you snoring loudly. You know, but all of the radical stuff that they do, and that is clearly designed to bring attention to them. People know, are these people going to fight for the issues? Or are they making this about them? Gavin Newsom makes it about him, and he's not serious. He's weak. Jasmine Crockett, AOC, same thing.
Yeah, it was Mark Kelly talking about Trump ripping up the Iran nuclear deal, and then we played all the Democrats saying, you can't have this deal, it's useless.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, Mark Kelly is just taking all of his service and trying to wrap it up as this great patriot when he is not.
No.
Not where he stands on the issues.
No.
You cannot call him a patriot.
Nope.
We are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's the question now, because Republicans are going to bring it up, the DHS funding for a vote. Can you be a Democrat and vote against it now? Can you sit there and say TSA agents, we might not have as many at the airport?
I just don't. I don't see how they get around funding DHS. I don't know how you do that now. Because the images of the ICE, protests and everything else, they're gone. They're not front and center. Iran changes it in a big way. But as you mentioned, TSA, of course, is a part of that screening process of people coming and going.
Yep.
You've got to fund it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.